Hello chess friends and welcome to Azarov's chess channel and welcome to the TCEC Season 19 Superfinal between the two top engines Leela C0 and Stocfish. After many rounds the result is equal. Stocfish has won 2 games, Leela C0 has won 2 games, many games ended in a draw, but I think in round 18 we have witnessed one of the most brutal attacks in chess history that Stocfish has played here. Although I'm revealing you a little bit the result, but as I always like to say, I don't care who wins this super final. I just really need to see these beautiful chess games, and Stocfish played really an immortal chess game. It reminded me of this Garry Kasparov Topalov immortal chess game from 1999 in which Kasparov sacrificed the rook for the initiative. It was really such a beautiful game that Stocfish has played here. Without further crapping how Stocfish grade is, how Leela C0 grade is, we'll simply skip to the game, and as usual we say round 1 and fight. So e4 play by Stocfish, c5, knight to f3, e6, d4, after c takes d4, knight to d4, we have knight to c6, the Paulson variation of the Sicilian, immediately challenging the knight on d4 of course, and we have knight to c3. Okay, we have d6, which is a similar structure like in the Chevening Sicilian, which allows black to have the flexibility if the position needs to be played like this. You want to play sometimes the move e5, sometimes you want to play the move d5, so black has the pawn center control. It means black has 2 pawns in the center, white has only 1, so black is slightly better in the center when it counts the pawns, but white has this dominant knight on the in the center, and most of the times you don't want to take out the knight because then you're inviting your queen into the game, your opponent's queen into the game. A d5 pawn breakthrough is also not such a powerful idea immediately after e takes d5, e takes d5. You risk in some occasions to have this isolated pawn, so that's why a d5 pawn breakthrough has to be your long-term plan, not as an immediate idea, because the kings are still in the center and you don't want to open the position in the center. So I'm getting some Twitter messages. Oh, it's Garry Kasparov tweeting again. I'll make that silent again. Garry Kasparov about something that has to do with politics. Okay, don't do that, Garry. Just continue to play chess. Leave the politics to the politicians. Okay, d6 here played by Leela C0, and we have now g4. So this move was also prearranged by the TCEC. We have h6. The idea about this flank attack of white is a great one actually if you think about this position more, because most of the times you see that white will castle on the queen side, black will castle on the king side, so we have already advanced attack on the king side, and as I said, the best ways to play against your opponent's flank attack is a central counter-attack, but d5 as a central counter-attack is not so good, as I said, as you risk this isolated pawn situation. So that's why h6 stops a little bit white's progress here, and we have h4 and now a6. So to this particular moment the game was prearranged. From this point on the engines are calculating the position for themselves, and Stocfish decides to continue here with the move knight to c6. After b takes c6, it may seem to you that white has made maybe a mistake, because black has this very powerful central control in the center. It means now maybe a d5 pawn breakthrough could happen and black could have maybe a dominant position in the center. But as I said, you see now in the continuation of the game that the d5 pawn breakthrough is not so easy to perform here, because first of all your king is in the center and there are also some tactical threats which Stocfish is preparing. So as I said, d5 as a long-term plan, but not immediately. So queen to d3, preparing now to develop the dark bishop somewhere and queenside castling, and wait really black to castle into our attack immediately that we have prepared here with the move g4 and h4. Knight to f6, we have g5. This move surprised me a little bit because it was really a theoretical novelty played by Stocfish. If you think about it, more a natural way here to proceed is to maybe play rook to g1 and then proceed with g5. But g5 is actually a great idea, because after h takes g5 we have bishop to g5, and now the bishop comes out with the tempo. So here if you don't play the g5 immediately, you have to play something like maybe bishop to e3, or first of course protect your g4 pawn. You have to make many moves and then maybe try to g5 pawn breaks. But now after g5, h takes g, bishop to g5, and we have now our bishop out, and we are only one move far away from castling and also fully development. So queen to b6, we have castling, and now a5. If you try something like rook to b8, it's defendable with b3, and the problem is now that Stocfish has set up the trap here. You cannot take the pawn on f2. That's the main problem, because you get e5 here. What to do? If you take, of course, the pawn, you get checkmated here on d8. You see, I would never, if I would play against Stocfish, I would never grab a pawn like this. I would always consider there are always some tactics here. So after the move e5 and maybe knight to d5, you risk this tactical shot with knight to e4. That's the main problem, and you see your d6 pawn is hanging. We could take it with the pawn. We could play something like c4 after that, and also again threatening some checkmates on d8. So after the move a5, queen to f3 was played, and now we have bishop to d7. Queen to d3. The queen from f3 had to move, because there was also this threat to play bishop to a6, really getting out with the bishop actively. After queen to f3, bishop to d7 was played, and now Leela c0 is preparing this c5 and maybe a5, a4, a3 pawn breakthrough, with preparations to play the rook and queen battery on the b file. So bishop to c4. Here rook to b8 was played. Again, if you try this move d5, you see the problems. Then you get e takes d5 after maybe something like c takes d5, bishop to f6. That's the main problem that I said about this potential pawn breakthrough. After g takes f6, now knight, bishop to d5, e takes d5, and now knight to d5, attacking the queen. The queen has to move somewhere. Wherever it moves, you get the same tactical threat. Knight to f6, first to check. You see your bishop on d7 is hanging. You cannot even move the king here. d8, we could simply take the queen, and you cannot take with the bishop as the rook is covering. The other rook can come also on the e file, so it's game over here for black. So that's why rook to b8, not this move d5. It seems always like a great move. We have really a nice central pawns from, but so far it's not possible. Rook to b8, we have bishop to b3, and now a5. Pardon me, c5 with preparations to play the move a4 and really deflect this bishop from the b file, and creating this very dangerous check on b2. So h5 played by Stocfish. We have a4 anyway by Leela c0, and now knight takes a4. Bishop to a4 is not an option. After knight to a4, if you take, then of course this bishop takes a4 comes with a check, and you didn't gain anything here. It's again defendable with b3, and I think white is much better here. So that's why knight, after the move knight to a4, queen to a5 was played, and now bishop takes f6. If you try here, g takes f6 was played in the continuation of the game, but if you try bishop to a4 to finally get something going on here on the b or an a file, then it's very tricky here for black. Stocfish has again set up a nice trap with queen to c3. You have to trade off the queens, or you lose again the bishop. But if you take the queen with the move queen to c3, then we have bishop to a4, and you're getting checkmated with both of these bishops. You can maybe move the rook here to b5, but again, it's game over. Very nice checkmate preparation here by Stocfish. So after bishop takes f6, we have g takes f6, and now knight to c3, simply retreating with the knight, and we have queen to b6. The threat is again c4, deflect the bishop from the b file, and then again creating this very dangerous check on b2. Queen to d3, we have king to e7. Very brave idea by Leela c0, but you don't have any more possibilities to castle. The pawn is here advanced. If you try bishop to e7, maybe queenside castling, you get some checks here on the g file. So the king has to stay with in the center. The good thing about black setup is that you have many pawns in front of your king, but you see now how Stocfish will punish the king in the center position. Incredible performance. After king to e7, we have a3, we have bishop to h6, and now king to b1. We have rook to c8. Again, the preparation is c4, deflecting the bishop, because the queen is now protecting the c4. So again, Leela c0 is playing this very dangerous threat. So that's why here, queen to c4, creating a little bit of a blockade here against this advanced c5 pawn. In the game, rook to c6 was played. Here, rook from h to e1. The idea is clear, to open somehow the position in front of the king. Even if we have to sacrifice some pawns in these positions, you can really give up all of your pawns. The idea is clear. We want to really create this brutal force attack against the king in the center. So rook to c7. If you play, for instance, the move bishop to f4, it seemed to me like a natural idea because we want to activate this bishop through the square e5 where it could really cause some damage. But the problem is now you get this tactical shot knight to d5. After e takes d5, e takes d5, you get the check and you see you lose the rook, and after that you can also lose the bishop probably. So it's game over here for black. So that's why rook to c7. Now this knight on d5 idea doesn't work immediately because after e takes d5, the rook wouldn't be attacked here on c7. So rook to d3. We are trying, of course, to play on a rook battery on the d file and attack the weak d6 pawn. So here bishop to f4 was played, and now knight to d5. Anyway, here by Stocfish will give that Mortal Kombat laugh. Knight to d5. After you have to take the knight because it's a fork on the knight on the queen and the king. After e takes d5, we have e takes d5 again, opening the e file, and now bishop to e5. Here queen to h4 was played. If you try f4 immediately, it's not a good choice because you get bishop to b5, attacking the queen, and also the rook is hanging. We can take, of course, the rook. You have to react here. Queen to d3, and now comes again this tactical shot with the move c4. So that's why after the move f4, so far this idea doesn't work. Here queen to h4, and now comes king to d8. If you try c4 now immediately, it's again not a good choice because you get really a nice tactical shot. Rook takes e5. You cannot take with the f pawn, you have to take with the d pawn, but now you get d6. The pawn is very dangerous here. If you retreat with the king, we'll simply take this rook, and also this rook is hanging. So it's a game over here for black. So that's why king to d8 finally getting out of the range of the rook on the e file. Even if you try something like king to f8, then you're getting basically into white's attack. We could play, I think, something like h6 and try really to get this rook somehow active. And again, maybe even h7, h8. So it's a dangerous position here for black. So that's why king to d8. Leela c0 is trying to escape with the king here. c8, then king to b7. Here in the game, Stocfish plays again a very, very nice tactic. Rook to e5 anyway. Sacrificing the rook. You cannot again take with the f pawn, you have to take with the d pawn, but now rook to f3. King to c8, finally escaping from this tactics by the rook and the queen, and the Stockfish is here a whole rook down, but with such a great attacking harmony between the pieces. These other pieces of blacks are so stuck here, they're so crowded here that it's really hard to activate them. And now h6 here, Leela c0 is really in danger. Stocfish is threatening to promote another queen. So king to b7, it's of course a good defensive move. You have to escape with your king, but now it cuts off the connection between the rook and the queen. The rook and the queen, it was our main battery, it was our main tactic here in the game from black's perspective. And now bishop to c4, finally escaping with the bishop. Now there is no more checkmate threat here on the b2, and now we're threatening also to play the move rook to b3, where we could maybe trap the queen on the b file. So that's why bishop to f4, preventing this idea. Rook to b3, rook takes f6, the queen has to move, and now after queen to f5 we have queen to e4. Very, very nice move. This is a very nice centralized queen because the queen is supporting, of course, the further progress of the h-pawn, but also we're threatening here a very nice discovered attack with the queen, and also to threaten to take the rook on c7. So bishop to b5, simplification idea here by Leela c0, trying to get rid of more pieces, but now d6. Anyway, played by Stockfish, we have bishop to c6, and now queen to e5. We have rook to e8. Here it seems so that Leela has defended, the queen has to retreat, but now queen to f5, simply staying on the queen and rook battery. You cannot do better moves. You could maybe try one check, but it's not so dangerous. After king to a2, you don't have any more checks, so that's why here rook to c7 was played. If you try something like a rook to c8 here, you have to create a blockade here against this advanced pawn, then you get d7 and fork on both of this rook. So here in the game, after queen to f5, as I said, rook to d7 was played. Rook takes f7. We have queen to d8, and now rook to g7. Very, very nice move played by Stockfish, because the idea is clear. We want now black to take the pawn, then we can recapture, and the bishop is controlling this square g8. So now we could also threaten a potential promotion on g8. So here king to b6, finally escaping from all of these tactical threats. The king is secured now, but again, this advanced pawns and also this activity of white's pieces is simply too much to handle here for black. b4, again a brutal force attack move played by Stocfish, trying really again to open the position in front of black's king. C takes b4, we have a takes b4, and now finally rook takes g7, we have queen to c5. It seems always to me that every pawn move, every pawn on the board played by Stocfish has its really its own meaning. After queen to c5, again the king has to retreat to b7, and now h takes g7. Although black is again the whole rook up, but again we see a rook to e1, only one check. Queen to f6, another problem we can hide with the move c3, and the problem is now you don't have any more checks. You see the queen is controlling the f2, the bishop is controlling the e2 square. Great tactics here by Stocfish. Simply no checks are possible here in the game. Queen takes g7 was played, but now b5 attacking the bishop. Bishop to e4, bishop to d5, bishop takes d5, queen to d5, and in this position Leela c0 resigned. There's nothing you can do here. After potential king to a7, we could simply proceed here with the move d7, and it would be, I think, like in Mortal Kombat, it was finish him. So after d7, again you can only try maybe one check, but after king to b3 you don't have any more checks. You cannot prevent any more the potential promotion. It was game over. Brutal attack again by Stocfish. You saw knight sacrifice, after that rook sacrifice, getting just one. This d5 pawn rolling. This d5 pawn was really an incredible pawn. Great performance, but as I said, the result is equal. Leela c0 still can win the Superfinal, but I think so far it was the best game in the TCEC Season 19 Superfinal. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more brutal attacks like this, check out my commented chess games played by computers. And if you want to see humans in these types of games, check out my best chess games of all time series played by humans. And if you like this content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.